I'm fine. It's one of the most common phrases we use every day, but it's also one of the best ways to avoid a conversation you don't want to have. It's efficient. It's polite. It requires no follow-up questions whatsoever. Conversation over. Everyone can go about their day. No more questions asked. It works in elevators, at work, with relatives you don't want to explain your emotional life to. It is a very versatile sentence. You can use it when you're busy, when you're bored or tired, when you're busy and tired. You can use it almost anywhere. And when you do, people tend to believe you. A word and a smile, and we decide that's some conclusive information. That must be the full story. They must be fine. Now, that's not because we're careless. No, it's just how the human brain works. We hear a word or see a smile, and our minds fill in the rest. We're wired to make sense of very little information very quickly. And most of the time, this works great. In fact, it's amazing. But sometimes it can lead us astray, especially when a simple phrase like, I'm fine, can mean a lot of different things. Now, in order to explain what I mean, I came up with a very scientific diagram that I like to call the I'm fine number line. Thank you, took me a week. Right, numbers go 1 through 8, and I'll explain what they mean. Let's start at 1. 1 represents the literal truth when someone says that they're fine. These people are actually fine, everything's okay. Now, the further we move down the line, the less true that saying I'm fine becomes. These people aren't actually okay, and you can fill in the rest. Now, the key thing I want to take away from this graph is that no matter where you are on the line, no matter how true saying I'm fine actually is, it's often met with the same response. We don't tend to ask any more questions. Now, to be clear, sometimes people say they're fine, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Sometimes people are genuinely okay. And in this situation, nothing important gets missed. And I'm fine works perfectly. However, when someone isn't fine, the exact same thing happens. However, this time, something has gone missing. Whatever that person's carrying, whatever reason that they're not fine, whatever it may be, it stays exactly where it is, with them. And the thing is, when something goes unnoticed, it doesn't just disappear. It gets carried forward into the next conversation, the next how are you, the next I'm fine. And the reason why I know this is because for a long time, it's exactly what I did. Now, one memory that comes to mind was at secondary school. We were playing a game of stuck in the mud, and it was lunchtime PE. Now, for anyone who hasn't had the joy of the English school PE system, stuck in the mud is basically tag, pretty much, but just if you get caught, you freeze. So on this day, I came in late, and I hadn't heard what we were playing. So inevitably, when the teacher blew his whistle to start, almost immediately, I was tagged from behind. And the second that I jumped out of my skin. It was like I wasn't in control of my body. I jumped in the air. It was almost as if someone had lit a firework underneath me. Everyone else thought I'd just been shocked, caught by surprise. I laughed it off. But I was actually reacting to something else. And when someone after did ask me how I was doing, all I said was, I'm fine. In truth, that reaction wasn't about being tagged, but being touched. It was caused by something that I hadn't told anyone about at that point, that I'd been sexually assaulted. At the time, staying silent felt safer than speaking. Silence protected my relationships, my routines, and my normal. I didn't know how to say it, truthfully, or what would happen if I did. And so for the longest time, my best form of self-protection became, I'm fine. Now, as I said earlier, when something goes unnoticed, it doesn't just disappear. And for me, it started to mold the interactions and the choices that I made in everyday life. I started turning down invitations, replying to fewer messages, making sure whenever I walked into a room, I was always near or knew where a door was. Now, all these things that I thought I was doing to protect myself were actually pulling me away from everyone who cared. I didn't realize that at the time, but on the outside, everything seemed normal. I was still showing up. I was still smiling. I was still saying, I'm fine. Whereas in reality, I was shrinking my world down, smaller and smaller, until it felt like it was a size that I was able to control. And that's how these things can look from the outside. They're not always things that are big and obvious, and sometimes they're a lot quieter, a lot more common, things that we come across every day that go unnoticed. Stress that's built up over months, grief that no one knows how to deal with, loneliness that doesn't look like loneliness at all. Now, not everyone is hiding trauma, but many of us are hiding something. And when something becomes difficult to say, often the easiest answer becomes, I'm fine. So what can we do? What is the reason I'm telling you all this? Well, when we think about healing, I think a lot of us think of a process that's quite individual, something private, the thing we go through on our own. Now, as someone who tried this technique, I can tell you it doesn't work very well. And there's a good reason, I believe, for why it doesn't. I had everything that I needed or thought that I needed to heal, apart from the one thing that matters most. And I'll get back to that in a minute. Every negative event that we go through in life requires some form of recovery. There are fundamental things that we need to get back on our feet, whether something has a huge impact or simply knocks us off balance. Now, the things we go through in life can look very different, but the building blocks and the things we need to recover remain very much the same. Now, in doing some research on the topic, I came across a really interesting piece of research done by a group of scientists. It was led by Mary Leamy, and she came up with this acronym called CHIME. Now, CHIME outlines the 5 fundamentals that she credits to healing, to be necessary to that recovery process. And the things you'll notice or have seen before: meaning, hope, identity. And the thing with all of them is that they're intrinsic. They're all things that we're able to do individually. In other words, they're things that we can do on our own, except for one. And that was the one I was missing. And you probably already spotted what that was. Connection. And it's the thing that's missing most often when someone tries to heal. And I believe there's a good reason for that as well. As humans, we have an impulse to isolate ourselves in our lowest moments. Why? Because isolation can feel like protection. It's an evolutionary response. It's formed to conserve energy and reduce risk. But in doing so, we pull away from meaningful bonds. The ones with friends, family, community, the ones that help us feel safe and make us feel seen. And I didn't realize that until someone helped me feel it. Now, this is my best friend. Not her best angle, I will admit. Now, like me, she works as a lifeguard. And at the time, when I would say I was probably at my lowest point, we were on shift together. It was midsummer, and it was freezing cold in the morning. I did not want to be there, and I walked into work, and she was already in the staff room. I said, "Hi." She said, "How are you?" I said, "I'm fine." And I threw my stuff in the corner, and I was about to walk out when she asked me another question. "Are you sure?" And that was just 3 words, but that was the first time in a very long time where I'd felt noticed. I wasn't ready to tell her everything. In fact, I wasn't even ready to tell her anything. So I just turned around, smiled, and said, "Yeah, I'm fine." But her small act of curiosity, her choosing to ask twice, in that moment made me feel seen. Now, a few days later, she did the same thing again. And like before, I got the same feeling. And then again a few days later, and again and again and again. until eventually I felt safe enough to share a small piece of what I'd been hiding. Now, it wasn't everything, but it was the first time that I'd let someone see past, I'm fine. Now, a little bit further down the line, I ended up going to therapy. And the more that I talked about what had happened, the more that I connected and opened up, the lighter that I genuinely began to feel. What started as a small act of curiosity quickly became something really impactful for me. It broke that cycle of isolation that I'd been in. And from that, I realized something very, very important. Connection does not have to be dramatic to be powerful. It can be a text, a phone call, even a good morning that you're not expecting. And it's often these small interactions, the ones that we often overlook, that can have a really big difference. What happened for me, and that's exactly what did, was not some big speech or some perfect response or some thought-out bravado, but it was just someone who took the time to look a little closer. And that's something that we can all do. Now, importantly, you don't have to have the right words. You don't have to have the perfect response or notice everything, and you definitely don't have to fix anyone's problems. But small moments of curiosity can quickly become big moments of care. So many of us are hiding things that no one else knows about. I'd like you to join me in thinking about someone in your life right now. Could be anyone. Just get someone in your mind. Could be a friend, a colleague, a family member, even the person sitting next to you right now. How fine are they? How do they feel? What are they going through? We all have things that we hide. We all have days where we say we're fine, and maybe we're not. And that's okay. But in order to heal, we need connection. And every single one of us has the power to be that connection for someone else. So, the next time you ask someone how they are, remember, it might not be the full story. Their answer could be the end of a conversation or the start of one. And it all depends on whether we choose to pause and look a little closer. Because you never really know what someone else is carrying, even if they say, I'm fine. Thank you so much.